Captain Mikael Hilde. I met you 2 years ago here at Mare during the Maritime Fair. We had a coffee and discussed some training possibilities here at Mare. And allow me to put it this way: you are like a precise, sharp pen with a heart bigger than this building. And it's always a pleasure to call you, We kept in contact since then, and you're just a great person. And it's more than that. Your career expands over 40 years, with 20 of them as captain, starting in 1978 on tankers, where you worked for 18 years, and then ending your seagoing career in 2018, after 20 years on cruise ships. You graduated with a Master Mariner license in 1990 from the school now called Mare. And you're also a proud member of the Alumni Captain Association ENO here at Mare. And today you work as an instructor for, I think, is it the world's biggest and best, at least biggest, training institution in Almere in the Netherlands, which is owned by Carnival Corporation. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here today, and I can tell you that the decision to call you and ask you if you want to host this event was very easy. You're warmly welcome, and the stage is yours, Mike.
Thank you so much. Yes, that was a great presentation. Part of that I did not really know, but it was nice to hear. Yes, I graduated from here, and I had to correct myself by SeaSmart being the best. It's the best of 2 training centers in the world, especially being here in Mare. But this is a great place to be, and it's a pleasure to be here. And today we will talk about autonomous ships, which is the future, perhaps. We don't know, maybe we have a lot of discussions today. The future might be here already. But I think we will have an excellent time here. And at the end of the discussion, I hope you have a lot of questions. I hope we can sort out some of them for you. But it's a pleasure to be here, and maybe we could start with a short presentation of the panel members here, and I will give the microphone.
Thank you, Captain. My name is Marko Raikainen, also a graduate from this school. At present, I work at the Finnish Transport and Communications Agency. I joined at the Finnish Maritime Administration in 2003, and in 2017 I was tasked to address the IMO who regulates the international regulations for shipping to open up for new technologies, and that has been the path for the last 2 years now, trying to advance new, more adjustable regulations which will allow for better technology on board vessels. I think that would be enough for now.
Sounds great. Maybe just continue.
So good afternoon from my side. My name is Frederik Östman. I'm a general manager at Business Development Wärtsilä Marine Business. I've been working for Wärtsilä for about 12 years. I have a PhD from Åbo Academy. I have a fairly technical background in Wärtsilä. I've been dealing with engines R&D quite a long time. But now for the past 3, 4, 5 years, I don't even remember, I've been partly in the internal discussion about autonomous vessels or autonomous features, whatever we call it. So that's why I'm also here today and representing my company.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Palomir Field. Currently the Global Marketing Communications Manager for ABB Marine and Ports Digital. I've been there for 8 years, and for my prior sins I used to work for Wärtsilä. A marine engineer by trade. I've worked on both cruise ships and for the Royal New Zealand Navy, hence the funny accent. And Mikael will probably tell me off for talking too fast. But basically where our approach has been a very sort of step by step and discussion on automation and autonomous operations.
Thank you, and good afternoon on my behalf as well. My name is Anton Westerlund and I'm working for Kongsberg Maritime here in Turku. I'm Vice President of Remote and Autonomous Solutions. And I have a connection to this building and Abo Mare as well as some of the rest of you. So I graduated here and studied, graduated and worked here for some time before I joined then Rolls-Royce at that time and working with remote operation centers, and now then as part of Kongsberg now. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon also from my behalf. My name is Sinikka Hartonen and I work as Head of Environment and Technology at the Finnish Shipowners Association. And I have received my Master Mariner's education in Kotka, so fortunately not here in Turku. But since I stayed away, or I retired from the sea life, I had a relatively long career at the public administration and public sector, from which I moved to the Finnish Shipowners Association about a year and a half ago. And besides being interested in seafaring, shipping and ships, I'm also very keen on talking about business strategies and finance. Money is always interesting. So I have also received my master's degree in economics here in Finland and also from the Henley Business School in UK. So when we are talking about autonomous vessels, that connects two things that are interesting. The development of the vessel operations, that's the seafaring part, but also the development of the shipping business in general.
Good afternoon. My name is Ronny Eriksson. I'm from Åland Islands. Born in the 60s, and my background is Master Mariner. I'm not educated here in Turku. I'm educated in Åland Island. I have been involved in various technical-driven projects during the years. In Viking Line, for example, software company Napa, Åland University of Applied Science, where we had a project called Åland Sailing Robots. And right now I'm working for Port of Longness as CEO. I'm also interested in business development, because I think that's one of the important drivers in this area. Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you so much. I think we will have a very interesting discussion. We have representatives from all corners of the shipping industry, from the official authorities to ports to also operators and companies that are really there in the front line developing autonomous ships. We have a lot of questions. We have prepared some of them. I try to follow that, but I think during the discussion you will come up with extra additional questions. But I have to ask the authorities, how do you see a realistic view of the coming future and autonomous ships?
Well, the future is always a little bit difficult to predict, but we have to bear in mind that we are stuck to a view that autonomous ships would be these totally unmanned, totally self-independent vessels, but the path to such a vessel is quite complicated, and we see that the development will start with smaller projects. It will start with a higher level of technology on board, usual cargo vessels, passenger vessels, for example, and then the development in domestic shipping will promote testing in small scales, which will in future come up with solutions which might be adaptable also to short-sea shipping or international shipping on the open seas. But at this moment, unmanned vessel is something that will require quite a lot of work.
Thank you. I will come to you there as well, but I just want to say that as far as I understand, autonomous ships doesn't necessarily mean unmanned ships from the beginning, so we have one extra step there.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say that I totally agree with what you are saying, and from my point of view, it's really about finding the gains we can do in short term with the technology that has now been developed and are being developed as we speak, and how can we introduce a safer, more efficient vessel operation already now, and not talking about, let's say, unmanned like directly. It's about the gradual building the capability. So that's a very, very good way of going.
Yeah, thank you, Anton. I think it's also to have an open mind and try to look into the future. I started my career with the Finnish oil company. I think I don't know it by then, but after 18 years, and I stepped on my first cruise ship that was slightly older, I realized that I had worked in the future. I stepped 40 years back in time. And I saw with that company that it is possible to really look ahead and develop your ship in the way you want to have it with the best possible equipment. I know that Kongsberg is a lot there. You are soon to have the first autonomous ship sailing in Norway. So. But you wanted to add something there.
Yeah, I think it's important to let's say separate the hype discussion that we have related to cars and so on. When we talk about autonomous ships, realistically, we are, as Anton said, it's a gradual step where we introduce autonomous features that helps first of all to make decisions on board. It's not about eliminating the people. It's helping them to become more safe and efficient. That is really the thing that we see now. We have attraction also business-wise.
Thank you, Fredrik. Yes, I agree with you. I think we have already some things on board the ship that we just don't understand that we already have, and I think Wärtsilä and Kongsberg and ABB are really there to develop a lot of things. Would you like to have these autonomous ships to your port?
Yes, they are very welcome. I want to add on where Fredrik started, and I totally agree what you're saying here. And I think it's very important to define what do we talk about when we talk about autonomous shipping. Because in our mindset, I think a lot of us have a different picture of the future. Also, I guess that the question will arise here today: when will it be a reality that we have autonomous unmanned ships? And when will it happen? And the pessimistic answer from me is that it will take at least 30 years more. The positive answer from me is that it's available. So already today we have autonomous ships and doing business, profitable business. So that we have a broad range of business cases.
Yes, I definitely agree with all the gentlemen here. And when we are thinking this matter from the perspective of a ship owner, I think that it comes to the business case. The autonomous vessels and the level of automation will increase whenever a business owner sees there a business case. And when we are thinking about the automation and the technology, it depends on how well we can develop the man-machine interface, how well we can have the human beings and the machines working together. So whenever we have this situation that we can see that empowering the people with the developed technology, that it will be a good investment for the ship owner, then it will really start to get some wind beneath its wings. It's the business case. That's what we need to develop at the same time.
a short comment here. That's definitely how it is, and I think, I mean, the visions introduced a couple of years ago with the unmanned vessels taking over the seas, that was kind of the starting point for a discussion. But now I see that we are more on a realistic level, what we can actually achieve and what we should actually do, and that comes very much down to what you just said, that there is no ship owner out there that will do this just for fun, for the fun of it. There has to be a gain. That's what we need to understand as equipment manufacturers also. Where is that value that we will capture and going forwards?
Okay, please.
Yeah, I think there's also a couple of things that need to be brought up on this, is actually what do we mean by autonomous. A lot of the things that we see now out in the market tend to be automatic. And if we tend to talk about autonomous operations, you know, I come from the engine room. We've done unmanned machinery spaces for quite some time. It doesn't mean it's an autonomous machinery space, and I would contend actually it's quite the opposite. Where the crew, you know, we might have a business case for the ship owner that we've reduced the headcount possibly, but what we've done with those unmanned machinery spaces is actually take a computer to do the boring part of the job, which is to look at a screen for 4 hours at a time, get not enough sleep for 8 hours, and then be back in the engine room at 4 hours. So I think there's a lot of technologies now that we're looking at that are actually able to supplant the qualified crew that are on board the ship. So one of the things I really quite need to emphasize here is that I seriously don't believe that anybody that's currently studying for a ticket or their Master Mariner's license or the Chief Engineer's license today, I seriously believe that they will not be out of a job at sea if they want to stay at sea. But the functions that they will carry out on board will be much more about this MMI aspect of managing automation, managing the autonomous operations, deciding when that's suitable. You know, if the ports are going to allow us to do the automatic docking, that will still have a very high degree of oversight and local management. But we may see towards the end of this 30-year horizon that some of the crew will still have to be very well qualified and competent, but they may not necessarily need to be on board that particular ship and start overseeing a fleet of ships. But we need to be very, very clear about what does autonomous actually mean.
Yeah, thank you. And of course we can go to the following thing is, how about the training and education, and how do we get that one? What do we need to focus on? And also the equipment. Do we have equipment that we can really fulfill these maybe dreams? If you go a little bit more in the future and have unmanned ships, which kind of ships will be unmanned? Can we have, or would a cruise ship get a passenger if there wouldn't be a captain or deck officers or engineers, anyone on board, just service personnel? It's a good question. We might change our mind in 50 years, who knows? But what about the education? How do we see that? Will that follow up? We have ships that might go there with an unmanned bridge, follow the rules exactly as we see them today, but then we have other ships meeting them that might follow the rules to 90%. Will that be a challenge? How do the authorities see about that? Do we have any?
Thank you. I think we had a quite good start this morning with a presentation where we look at what the new technologies would provide as guidance or advice or assessments of the situation around us. And on an initiative from the ship owners last autumn, we also had these working groups where we together with all stakeholders and school and those who are now training to be seafarers discussed what kind of new challenges the new technologies will bring. Yes, they will bring new requirements or trainings that are needed to understand the functions of all these autonomous systems or automatic systems, to understand the system structure and the whole ship's function as a system of systems. So in that sense, we need also in the future to address what kind of training will be needed and how it's going to be provided. Having said that, as a Master Mariner, I don't think that this will take away the training for basic skills we are giving now, we will still need the basic understanding of the maritime as an environment where the vessel is situated.
Thanks, Marco. And of course, we need to remember, we sit here and talk about equipment and thoughts we know today. We have no idea what happens in 10 years or 20 years, where the equipment will be, when the third, fourth, fifth generation of artificial intelligence will step in, and they said that when they start to think for themselves and can do decisions, not program them, who knows what we can do then, but we are talking about autonomous ships as we know them today. So, Ronnie.
Yeah, a short comment. I just want to emphasize that I don't think that autonomous shipping is about so much about technology. I think this the question emphasizes that this is more about juridical issues, about moral, ethique, as well as very much about moral and ethique and risk management.
Absolutely a big thing, but it's also when we go ahead and we start to get them, it's also a question of technology, and some things we might have the technology for today or works very well on land, but maybe not when we are in the middle of a North Atlantic storm in the winter. Sinenka.
Thank you. If I may just add a short comment for this competence matter and training, which will be extremely important in the future, as we have already begun to notice. If we think about the competence in this changing world, it's like an, how should I say it? It's like an ever-changing beast. The technology is evolving so fast, and everything around us, the processes, the way that we work, that changes also in the shipping world. So it will be a huge challenge for our authorities and especially for the training providers to keep up with these challenges. How do we train the future seafarers if we are not even available to see, or if we can't even see what kind of skills and knowledge would be the most beneficial for those people? How do we train them? Because it's not very wise from us to train them for something for the world that will not even never exist. So that's a huge challenge, and I think it's common for basically for all of us, training providers, authorities, but also for the ship owners as an employers, and also for the technology providers.
Yes, I would say with regards to the education, I would say that since the, let's say, the basic education in maritime is such that you do not change that very rapidly, and we need to have the basics there, but then I think it's also a responsibility for us as equipment manufacturers that the type specific and the systems training is something that where we have a role, a bigger role now in this domain than currently with current systems, I would say, because the development is so fast that I think that, let's say, regular training schemes have a hard time to keep up with that. But we need to have the basics in place, that's for sure. But then what is added on that is really the question.
Yeah, of course, and then we have the official authorities, whatever that is, in different countries on IMO, it's very slow, and you have all the member states, they have to agree on things that might take 10 years to get the simplest thing done. So, of course, then we have another challenge there, but do we have equipment for autonomous ships? Are we really there yet? We have.
Who would like to start?
Yes, yes.
Raise to the microphone. Yes.
Yeah. No.
Absolutely not. No. I mean, yes, we have technologies to operate a vessel from A to B during certain special circumstances, but to do that day in, day out, with all possible situations that can occur, no, absolutely not. I mean, we talk about also that the human factor is causing 80% of the accidents out on the sea, and autonomous features would be a way to deal with that. But at the same time, we also need to recognize that we add the risk of bugs and so forth. I mean, we are not ready for this. So as on a product level, no, we don't have it. We have autonomous features. We have specific features that we can use with the oversight of humans. So for example, I think that all of these OEMs, Kongsberg and Wärtsilä, we have this kind of autonomous docking feature that we are prepared to sell, but that is a really specific feature for a specific customer segment.
Thank you. I will give it to you in a few seconds, but that was interesting. You mentioned about 80% of the accidents are caused by human errors at sea, but as far as I know, it's not this the whole chain. Human error have caused something from the manufacturer of equipment to the ship. It's easy for a non-seafarer to see when we see the news that, okay, something happens, it's the captain's fault. And 80% of that is the captain's fault, which is, as I see, it's not really there. It is partly there, of course, but it's the whole chain from getting an equipment on board that could have a bug on board or in the software already. So that is something that... Paloma.
So there's a saying that stranger things happen at sea. I think this 80% statistic we've got to be very, very careful about. It's a D&B statistic, and they always look at the worst side of life. But we've also got to remember that if you've got a good crew on board, they would have stopped a lot of incidents as well, and they're never ever reported in an SMS. It's just the way of doing business. I mean, you know, when I was working at Royal Caribbean, we came in with the 2 eyes check for the checklists and that sort of stuff, very specifically so that you would stop this. I think you call it the Swiss cheese model at Seasmart. So, yeah, completely agree. We've got the technologies to do autonomous operations, but it's very, very discreet. I mean, we just announced that we're going to be putting autonomous technologies onto a tug in Singapore, which is quite possibly one of the most crowded waterways in the world. But that is going under almost laboratory conditions. You know, we have to perform certain tasks to a certain achievement, and we are for sure not going to operate that tug, and the customer definitely won't let us do it. We'll not operate that tug with no people on board. But the use case, I mean, the business case is an interesting one, is that we want to relieve the crew of the boring transit so that they can go to get a cup of coffee or downtime or go to the bathroom. But then the people that are on board are rested and ready to do the difficult job of ship handling. You know, getting the lines on, managing that ship, getting the orders from the pilot. That's where you can start deploying autonomous now, is to try and relieve some of the strain on the crew. I think, you know, the number of people on a container ship now is shockingly low, but that you can do that now. And we need to manage the human element so that they don't get tired and make those mistakes. But we've got to remember that humans do have this ability to creatively troubleshoot, anticipate, and, you know, a chief engineer or a captain's gut is a powerful thing.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to add on to the discussion about the technology and what is, what is available today, really. And I think that, generally speaking, there is still a gap. There is some development clearly to do, but there is, from a Kongsberg perspective now, for instance, there is bits and pieces out in the product portfolio that suits very well into this picture. But it's about also forming the solutions around the autonomous vessel, utilizing these products that are available. And then we have to also keep in mind that it's forming bigger solutions and systems, and coming from a, let's say, you demonstrate your technology and your capability, but coming from there all the way to having a product, that's still quite a way to go. And I think you guys can agree on that as well, that there is some road to cover before you can say that something is really a product as well.
Yeah, and just one more aspect into the discussion is that when we are talking about the increased level of automation and increased use of technology on board the vessels, it's not only about the number of crew and how many people we have on board. That should not be the case or the focus. We should also talk about the environment, because with the help of the automation we can increase the safety of the vessels and have the positive environmental aspects and that is and impacts, and that is extremely important nowadays when we are talking about safety in general, but also about how we can achieve the emission reductions that the whole industry have already committed to. And we see that the digitalization and the use of technology has a big part in that.
Yes, I totally agree what we have said here. But I also want to emphasize that there is already autonomous ships in operation. They don't have a crew, and they're doing business every day. Sailing drones, I don't know if you have heard about sail drone. They are small ships, boats, you could call it boats, and they collect data. And that's a good example of destructive business. This shows the importance of the business case and look into the business and how to use the technology. And also the loop of the business is important to emphasize here. First you have the game and the playing, and you have a research and development, and suddenly someone invests, and you have an investment, you have operation, and you have a loss. But one day you have so good investment, so good equipment that you don't have a loss, that you have more or less a profit. That day, that's the day when it's profitable to develop the product even more. And that means that the profit from the business can go into the business loop, and you can have more investments, profit from the operation, and that's the way that the destructive operation will start. So that's another part of the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to be brave enough to try with new technology and go ahead and develop things. And it's very nice that Wärtsilä, ABB and Kongsberg is really there in the front line of the development, and we need to be careful. But we have already heard that there is an unmanned tug maybe that is not operating as an autonomous tug. Yes, absolutely. And we are close. If we jump a little bit in the future, we use that tug, the ship is coming into the port. How will the port be prepared for this? How can you deal with the autonomous, maybe even unmanned ship coming in to your port?
Well, the first solution I can come up with right now is to arrange several more fenders, stronger ones. That's what I have for today. But for example, in Port of Longnes, we are in investment of automatic mooring. So in 2020 we will have the port totally automatic. So the captain have a tablet on board with a green button, that means moor, and a red button, and that's unmoor. So that's a good start. So if you can integrate to the red and green buttons, then we are ready.
Yeah, we might get confused with the nav lights there. Let's see which one we switch off first. But very good. Now we have about 20 minutes more for this panel discussion, and then we can start with questions from you. I think you're already writing down a lot there. You have a lot of interesting topics for us. How about the pilotage? I think it can already be, the ships can be guided in from a remote. It is used over the world. I have been with tankers already 30, 40 years ago, almost, when we were guiding into some of the European ports because of fog or bad conditions, and the oil really needed to come there, and they allow us to sail in. But how would the regulation be with that? How do we see that? Will that be a function as well? Would the pilot dare to go on board when nobody's there, or just a minimum crew, maybe? And or will the ships be guided through a BTS system?
Yes, thank you. This is a project which is initiated by FinPilot, where they have been examining all the risks and all the accidents they have had, and also how to make their services more efficient. And they found out that the biggest risk that the pilot faces is, of course, boarding the vessel or unboarding at sea. Furthermore, also all the time waiting for transferring from the ship to the ship, waiting in the ports and so on. They wanted to explore ways of making their operation more efficient and safe, and this will require quite a lot of infrastructure and new technologies. The question regarding would a fully autonomous ship or unmanned ship need a pilot? Well, if this project comes out that a pilot can pilot a manned ship, of course, then we can pilot an unmanned ship also, that's good. So in that question, I think we are not fully grasping how these different concepts will interact with each other. Time will show where the benefits of all these projects will meet up.
Anton, become a pilot now.
Yeah, I would very much like to, but I think it's too late now. But anyhow, on the pilotage part, I think that's another area again where we can see that the technology, as it is today, can benefit that situation. So if we are able to do, for instance, remote pilotage, that is then I think a step in the right direction with let's say increasing the safety of that operation and so forth. And that's a, let's say, an enabler to also come forward from that position, really. So I see that the initiative that FinPilot has now is highly interesting, and we're following that very closely. So it's a good thing.
Very good. I'm very much in favor of autonomous ships, and I think we can't really talk about autonomous ships without mentioning artificial intelligence a little bit. And maybe that is something that could really be appreciated on board with. Just we work with the engine and on deck, all the alarms we get, and some of the alarms are perhaps a fault alarm, we don't know. We have to attend to that, and maybe to have a piece of equipment what could decide that. Should we really alarm now, or should we just wait or analyze it in any other way? Any thoughts about that?
Well, I would say personally I'm a bit skeptic about artificial intelligence because of the single fact that you cannot test a neural network. It's not possible to test it, how it will behave, and guarantee its performance. But of course, in certain situations, you can use it. You can use it for monitoring. You can use it for decision support and so on. I think that there the main challenge is actually that it's all technically possible today. We can develop and produce and sell really high-tech stuff that really gives you the problem. The problem is that there is no business case in it, in the end. Nobody is really prepared to pay an additional euro to get a little bit more clarity on troubleshooting or safety and reliability. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think that's the key point of this, that technically a lot of the things we're talking about are available today, can be deployed today. There'll be some limitations, However, the business case, and what Seneca was saying earlier, is really the challenge. It's not a technical issue, it's a commercial issue. What we are seeing the benefit of is data collection on board, and if we actually could get on board with standardization of tags, just following the ISO standard that already exists today, then we'll see benefit from the deep benefit of digitalization, trends over time, tapping into the various OEMs that we need to, and then as we move into the future, the near-term future of 5 to 10 years, really starting to understand that the ship as a system, as a network. So if you're talking about AI or neural networks, you first off have to integrate the hardware. And at the moment, the majority of ships are a bunch of disparate nuts and bolts chucked together inside a Faraday's cage that bounces around in the 7 seas and is disconnected from Facebook for weeks on end. That's never going to be a smart solution unless we actually change from the keel up.
Yes, thank you for letting me come in on this, even I'm not a technology developer. We have to remember that the new technologies should enhance maritime safety, and the new concepts will probably be more complicated than the systems nowadays. And in that sense, we need to think, what do we exactly expect of an artificial intelligence or machine learning? Are we talking about a consciousness, or are we talking about an artificial intelligence that provides us with guidance on how the ship and system is working, reacting, or having faults? So I think when somebody says artificial intelligence, we are really bit thinking over the horizon. We are not looking at actually giving the crew or the officer aboard the vessel the decision support that they need. Where is the level of the artificial intelligence we're talking about?
Yeah, we are probably not there yet, but you mentioned a good thing. You said being without Facebook for a whole week, which is absolutely horrible, or any other social media. I don't think we could really survive that, but that's a good thing. If we are without social media on the ship today, that means there is no link, there is no connection. So how would we see that ship on our operating centers around the world?
So I'm going to be nasty and bounce the question back to you. You work for C-Smart. Carnival has deployed one of the most comprehensive digitalisation efforts we've seen in a long time. Wärtsilä, as a consequence of that, have now got their performance-based contract, PBL, where there is a win-loss agreement depending on the performance of the vessels, their fuel oil consumption. There's an incentive for Wärtsilä to provide the latest upgrades. But that is a conscious decision by that ship owner to shift the risk to the OEM. To balance that risk, there is a very complicated connection through Neptune into the Wärtsilä Centre, and I think it's 74 ships, so that's about 3/4 of the fleet. Roughly 3/4 of the fleet is connected at a very high level through the Neptune system. We have to remember that Neptune system came about to make sure the ship stayed within certain corridors first, and since then has grown to changing the commercial relationship, to regulatory compliance with scrubbers, and being able to have that data stored in the cloud. They can then run their own machine learning analytics on that data. It doesn't necessarily have to be done on board the ship or on a stack within the ship.
And I agree with you. I come from Carnival Corporation, the C-Smart. Now we had 3 operating centers in the world. The first step for that was not really appreciated on board because of the extra workload of whatever that was, maybe phone calls in the middle of the night, several of them. But after that, I have heard only good comments, and now it's used for much more than only monitoring system, helping with the weather, etc. So it's a really good thing, and we have operating centers in Hamburg, Miami, and Seattle, which is appreciable of onboard officers. Sorry.
Thank you. So when we think about technology, and then we think about the people on board. So you mentioned that we have a lot of technology that could become artificial intelligence, or it could become some sort of decision-making system or something like that. So nowadays, when we have these people on board, and we will have them in the future also, but even today they are required a lot of different kind of certificates. All the master mariners or the future master mariners sitting in this room, you all know what kind of pile of paper are required from you in order to show that you are competent in your duties. So what about these algorithms and artificial intelligence? What kind of competence requirements we set on them, and how do we certify these systems that should be as competent as these people who they will be relieving from their duties part-time or maybe in the far future altogether?
Yeah, those are very good questions, and as you mentioned, I think we look a little bit beyond the horizon there, but still it might be coming, and it might be things that we need to think about when we plan future ships. Maybe not in 5 or 10 years, or maybe not even 20, but we don't know. But I started out, we had only one officer on watch, and we clearly thought that is absolutely enough. I went to my first cruise ship when the rest of the fleet had 2 officers. We had only 1 because we still thought that is enough, and it was. But then, now I've been on cruise ships where there are 3, 4 officers on watch when we come closer to shore, and some of them are overwhelmed because there's so much. Not only talking about alarms, talking about other checklists that has to be done so we cover our backs for future. But anyway, we have talked about the ports are prepared, or you will be prepared when the first ships comes, and the shipping owners, they're happy looking into the future and not going down necessarily manning but helping the crew. That's very good. But the connectivity with the ships, and you made a joke about the Facebook, but it is a true thing, because today with the equipment we have on board, it is not necessarily as good as it could be. Maybe the equipment are there, but we have not invested for some reason. So there are a lot of concerns that how can we really monitor the ships and really help every single second during the year. Are we there?
I think it really depends on the design philosophy. I mean, yes, we need connectivity for remote control vessels or autonomous vessels or whatever. We need connectivity, but we cannot rely on connectivity. We need to have systems on board that is needed for the operation. That's clear. So if we need to have smart systems on board, we need to have smart systems on board. We cannot have everything in the cloud or on shore. That I think is clear. A remote vessel, a remotely controlled vessel, needs also to have autonomous features, because otherwise we will lose control immediately when we lose the connectivity.
Yeah, we've had to go through these studies, and actually with class as well, talking about algorithms and that sort of thing. But the hardest ship to deal with in terms of connectivity is actually the remote controlled vessel. So it's not even autonomous, it's the remote controlled vessel is the hardest one to deal with. But certainly what we've learned is to, the stack that goes on board the ship has to be independent, but then also the question has to be asked, why do you need the connectivity? An aircraft does not send terabytes of data while in flight. It logs the data, then there's one person on the ground when it lands whose job it is to plug a hard drive into that plane to download that data from the telemetrics and then provide that to the OEMs, whether it's the engine manufacturer, the hydraulic system, and so forth. So don't fall into the trap of aviation scholars, so why can't we? They don't. What they do is they have a data stream that's very, very basic. They know that there's no such thing as real time. I think that's something that we fall into the trap of. And you can actually do quite a lot with the current connectivity regime that we have which is a big step from where we are now. And I think the ship owners are being, in one sense, trying to do their thing with whatever the fleet ops thing is. And there's a lot that can be done, so maybe we should look at doing that first. David?
Yeah, I think regarding the connectivity, I think it's definitely necessary, but then it's about how you structure the data and what is really necessary to bring to the shore side as well. And if you put enough money on the table, you get bandwidth for whatever your needs are. But there's then we are out of the business case on that side again. And it's really, from my point of view, it's really about optimizing the data streams. And we know that control data in terms of remote control, for instance, and as Paulinia said, there is real time is a, let's say, a saying that that comes with a bit of question marks after. But anyhow, there is control data is not a major portion of data in that picture really. So it's something that we can manage and live with.
Perfect. We had a lot of nice comments and things. Maybe these have answered some of your questions, but I would suggest that we go ahead with Q&A from our audience, if you're okay with that. And do we have any questions with regards to autonomous ships? Are you concerned about your future? Yes.
Just a small question. It was, I think, 20 years ago in IMO. There was a try, I think it was Denmark and Netherlands, that introduced something they called one-man bridge. Do you know where it lies today? That was a step in this direction, but it didn't lead. Then, anyway.
Marco, do you have anything?
It was to get out the lookout from the bridge. Manage.
I vaguely remember this discussion from IMO regarding the one-man bridge. To my understanding, it's quite frequently used nowadays on these very low-crewed vessels which are doing short shipping in European trade. But I can't actually tell you where it ended up regulatory ways. The basic requirement for keeping a lookout is still there, and the requirement for officer of watch is still there.
But very nice question. Any more? Anything else? Please. Yes.
Hello, Mikaela from Atlas Electronic. Thank you for the panel. Very interesting topics, excellent answers. I would like to ask you about the cybersecurity. How do you see the cybersecurity challenges for the future in unmanned or autonomous vessels? Thank you.
To put it bluntly, they scare the hell out of us. Even though IMO has, is it 2021, the requirements for cyber, DNV now has their cyber notations. It does mean you have to build up your systems on the ship from the ground up. At the component level, you already have to be designing for cybersecurity. It's not something that's now, and it's actually really good you raised it, it's something that has to be managed throughout the entire project. And if you try to skimp on it and skip something, something as simple as leaving a USB port open and not disallowed in the BIOS will come to bite you. So it is a very deep thing you have to do.
Yeah, excellent question. I mean, I completely agree. We need to look at the vessel as a system and including the people also. I think, throwing some statistics now again, I think 98 or 99% of all the cyber attacks start with a person. So the people are the weakest link in the whole system. We need to take care of the people, how we deal with the USB ports again, yeah, can we use them, can we not? And we need to look at the vessel as a system, because if we talk about technology, we have all the components basically that we need to create a sufficiently cybersecure system. The problem is that we cannot buy an engine that is cybersecure, and we cannot buy a vessel automation system that is cybersecure and combine them and believe that that system will be cybersecure. So we need to look at the design from the start and look at what is sufficient for us, what do we need to do. And again, there is not such a thing as a completely cybersecure system. We need to understand that we need to just have a sufficient cybersecure level.
That is a very interesting topic, of course. It's really, really interesting. And how deep do we need to go? I mean, how do we have to screen the people working for us and developing from the beginning? Let's Anton.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in also that it's also about the fallbacks really. What do we do that day when that attack comes? Because that comes one day. That's it. And that is then about how we have been designing the systems and what is our safeguards there in that position.
And it also relates to the training and education of the future seafarers to this cyber world. If the future seafarer is not as much operating, but is monitoring the systems that are extremely complex and complicated, how do we educate the people to realize that now there is something wrong and someone is messing up with our system? So that is also related to the training, but extremely important matter and good question.
Absolutely, Fredrik.
Just the last comment. But we need to have balance in the discussion, because I was part of a discussion, cybersecurity discussion about autonomous vessels. And we talked about piracy, and then I heard one comment. So, yeah, forget about GPS spoofing and whatever. If I would take control of an autonomous unmanned vessel, I would just clog the air intake of the vessel, kill the engines, and then take it over. So we need to have an overview in this discussion. It's not only about cybersecurity.
Absolutely. You had one other question.
Yeah, Björn Gunnars. One can maybe say that the shipping business is traditionally a slow mover regarding changes. Now we heard that a lot of changes has been made and a lot of coming up, and that's of course good. And if you look at the automobile industry, I guess no one wanted to go there, but then one did, Tesla, and now the others is follow. So we need this business case. But my question is really related to that. What I think we need to do to get this really flying is we need to get the acceptance from the society, because this is a big issue. So the question is, how do we get that?
Thank you. Very interesting question.
I think this is where I bore people with an engine room story, but the first watch I stood on a ship as an engineer was in a boiler room on a ship designed in the 60s, and it was controlled by 6 valves, with 2 for the air, 2 for the water, and 2 for the fuel to go into the boiler. So it was very mandrolic. One of the ways that we can get society on board on this is we're already starting to see it. We've, particularly in the Baltic, where we have a lot of ports that are embedded with downtown, you know, they don't want to see ships that are producing smoke downtown. Even in Sydney Harbour and Darling Harbour and Circular Quay, where they have scrubbers in operation, there's still visible emissions from there, and that's causing trouble there. By allowing ships to shut those down, or to show that they're going on to simple things like shore connections and reducing the noise and the local emissions, that will make a big change. We see Carnival announcing the biggest installation of a retrofit of batteries on one of the AIDA vessels of 10 megawatt hours to see if they could do a zero emission port stay. The pressure is already there. I would safely say that the marine business is not as traditional and as conservative as what it used to be. Particularly over the past 20 to 30 years, we have seen significant changes, And with the sulfur regulations coming in, we are going to see more changes coming. This is not a conservative industry anymore. It's an industry that's looking for answers.
And there have been operators before also that they dared to make steps and try with new things and doing the best they could. And some of the operators are old-fashioned, maybe slow movers, but I think we are moving faster and faster all the time, all over the planet, and all different shipping segments. Very nice question so far, yes.
How is the insurances for the ships and cargo and these liquidations and so on?
Maybe something for the ship owner.
Thank you for the good question. I have had some discussions with the insurance industry people, and they have told that they are a little bit struggling at the moment because the technology is developing so fast and it has been introduced and implemented, but the insurance people, they don't really know what kind of risk or the benefit the technology will provide. So they are searching and looking for this something that they called risk reference, so that they know what type of this new technology, what type of risk or benefit it will bring, and they expect that the insurance premiums might go a little bit higher for some time, but when the insurance people, when they get proof and they learn about the technology and about the benefits and how it can reduce risks, then the prices will come down. But what we can expect is that we might see a little bit of higher level of premiums in the future.
Thank you.
Johan Nyström, thank you for all the good answers. I actually have a questions which is more related to education. I don't have a seafarer background, I'm a naval architect, but when I went to school in Helsinki, everything they learned out was already 20 years old. And I know that it's difficult to get new seafarers today, but it is actually quite hype and as we have already seen, up to date and interesting and so on. But it's not only automation, which I think is a huge problem. I mean, to learn the latest. I mean, for a pupil from this school, when they come out, they have to get training for everything, because the schools don't have that equipment, at least not many. Also on the engine side, if we don't have a generator running, it doesn't matter how many computers you have running the ship. And I was in a reference group on Åland and talking about dual fuel, LNG and so on, but they don't even have that equipment in the school. They're talking about two-stroke engines, you know, and all these things. How do you see that? Because it's actually about money, and the schools don't have that kind of money. Did you get my point?
It was a good point, and yeah, schools might not have money to upgrade their system. They might have today, but how about tomorrow when everything goes pretty fast pace?
I think you touched on a general trend in our society. I don't think that we can actually, this is my personal belief now, I don't think that we can expect that we go to school, learn something, and then we apply it for the rest of our lives. I think, and this is actually a business case for you, I think actually that we need to have a continuous learning. So you need actually to re-enter school and learn new stuff, because also I think it was Seneca who said that how can we ensure that we are actually teaching now the right stuff today when we don't know how tomorrow looks like? We don't. We cannot do it. We need to. I think that we need to have this continuous learning idea implemented.
Yeah, excellent comment there. And I represent an organization, C-Smart. We educate 8,500 deck and engine officers every year, because we have seen that there is a need. Things are changing. We are just working with, you mentioned LNG. LNG program, and today's rules are not even really there where they should be. So we are trying to come up with new ideas, and we are going to build more ships, but that means that we need also to provide a good education.
Thanks, Johan, for the nice, easy question. There is an element here where I think we need to learn from other industries, particularly those of you who are going for your Master Mariner's license or your Chief Engineer's license, that you will have to have a responsibility on yourself to keep that training up. And as a bit of a disclaimer here, I'm a member of the Technical Leadership Board for the IMRS, but it's the same with the Nautical Institute. You are required, if you're a member of those learning societies, the same as NAME, that you must maintain some continuous personal development, CPD, and it's actually measured in the system as such. And it can be as simple as going to conferences like this, and having discussions and making the contacts. But if you're just finishing up your cadetship now and you're supposed to be graduating shortly, the way to stay on top of this is to take the responsibility on yourself, because the ship owners have to run a ship. That's their job. It's your job to keep current and stay current. I mean, I'm a marine engineer who's working for an electrical firm because that's where I've ended up. But we don't always follow the path that you start school with, and I think that applies across all professions in a big time.
And you mentioned that maybe we need to look what other industries have done. So maybe we should just take a peek what the aviation has done. Maybe the future seafarers need to have some kind of, I'm not sure how to explain it, but when you are in the aviation, you learn to fly. The general flying lessons are given you when you are studying to become an airline pilot. You know how to fly an airplane in general. But then you will get your type approval or something like that. When you are changing from Airbus to different kind of planes, you need to get continuous training and sort of get your type approval for that type of plane. So maybe that will happen also in the shipping world and in the maritime education, that you get your training for certain type of vessels, certain kind of engines, or certain type of fuels, or certain type of navigational systems. I don't know, just an idea.
Yeah, now we are into a very interesting topic, and that's about the standardization. And I think, yeah, I know the feeling. As it is today on board the vessels, you all know that it's quite fragmented, really, what we have out there, really. And I think there is definitely a lot of room for improvement already now on that side. But that is then quite tricky, because it has a relation to the competitive advantage also that we as OEMs would like to maintain somehow, but we also know that we need to have a certain level of standardization as well. So it's quite a tricky question.
Indeed, but the training is important. We have the responsibility ourselves to ensure that by taking part here, maybe listen to topics that we don't really understand and realize, hey, maybe we need to take another course somewhere or read a little bit more about it and educate ourselves. We have one question there in the back.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Onni Matson. I'm a student here at Abomare, and I would like to address a question about our future. If we take a leap towards the future, maybe 30 or 40 years, it's about the money, I get it. And do you have an understanding that how many people will, lose their job, or is there opportunities for people in the shore side to work, and what kind of work there is on land for seafarers studying now?
Thank you, a very valid question. Who would like to take this first?
Right, as long as this doesn't get back to my CEO, I firmly believe that no one who's studying for a license now will be put out of work by what's going on with the shipping business right now. The nature of work will change, but there is overall trend with people who at sea, that they will tend to now be at sea for maybe the next 10 to 15 years before going shoreside. You know, he's an outlier. That's not normal anymore. So therefore the turnover of staff that we have at sea, the competence that we have, the deep knowledge of how a ship handles, the manoeuvring characteristics of different types of shaft line, as dare I say it, CPP and all of these sorts of things, there's no way a programmer in an office somewhere ashore will ever understand that. So we need to have people, even ashore and even in our companies, that have been at sea in the State 7 that recognise where and what a ship can and shouldn't do. So I hope that gives you some confidence in your future.
Since I'm not a seafarer myself, I cannot really comment the short-term outlook, but I would like to comment on the fact that in Wärtsilä actually we have a lot of seafarers and they are really competent and we really need them. We really need to have this insight in what it's actually about to be on a vessel, because I don't know that. I'm a technical guy, I know what, I can create a hammer for you, but I don't know how you will use that hammer. So we absolutely need we need you to come and tell us how to deal with these things. So I wouldn't say that, I would say that you have a really excellent opportunity also onshore, if that would be the case. It really depends on you what you would like to do.
Yeah, very good. And you mentioned like 30, 40 years ahead of time. I think you also have a time to learn something new during that time and maybe move yourselves, maybe shoreside, who knows. But I also think that in the very near future you will practice the job you have been educated for. But Anton had something.
Yes, to Onni still further, I think, as Fredrik said, an excellent opportunity on shore, but you still have excellent opportunities on board as well. The manned vessels will not go anywhere for some time. There will be a combination of let's say, different manning levels out there, but there will always be people on board the vessels to some extent. So I think keep that in mind as well and go for an exciting future.
Absolutely agree on that. We had one question in the far end there.
Hello, my name is Sydney Nordbeck-Davies and I'm a doctoral researcher at Turku School of Economics. And I've been studying the phenomenon of autonomous shipping since 2015 when the AVA project was launched. And now I've observed that since Rolls-Royce retrieved from this business, what we've seen is a reduction in the number of communications in the public media and also in the shipping industry media regarding autonomous shipping. So my question really is, should someone else now take the lead in sort of driving this phenomenon forward, or are we just happy sort of cruising along, if you will?
I think you all would like to say something about this.
I think that we need to keep in mind that the question is, why should we drive the autonomous vessel discussion? I think this is actually what has happened now. We start to think about why do we need it, what are we using it for? So it's actually the business who should take a lead. It's the business case again, we have said it many times. So together with the business, the OEMs will try to find opportunities to do good, to make it more efficient, more safe, all these kind of values. That is what will now drive the discussion. I don't think that anyone needs to take the lead to push the autonomous discussion as such. I think Rolls-Royce did a really excellent job in awakening this discussion, because before you did it, it was just it was a crazy field. Exactly. So, but now we have this discussion, and now the hype is gone, the dust is settling, and now we are actually having a good discussion what we actually should do. So I think that all is good, actually.
Yeah, I'll also second my opinion on what happened with Rolls-Royce, kickstarting the whole conversation. I think that actually there's a lot to be commended about that. But also you have to realise that now we're very much in a wait-and-see phase. I think the scoping exercise is Q2 next year at IMO. We're all sort of sitting, waiting and seeing what has been recommended and what will come out of that. But you know, make no mistake about it, there is still sufficient hype for us to run businesses inside our respective OEMs that there is still things going on. But yes, I would say that with the hype, the dust has settled down, we're still holding the bits here going, okay, now what? And it comes to, we need to make business, we need to provide value to shareholders, but also the industry has to be safe. And that's really the discussion that's going on now, is how do we make this happen? How do we make money out of it for all the people involved, but also how do we keep the business safe? And you've still got to get your cargo to the next port and not hurt anybody while doing it. So that's maybe why there's this perception that things have died down.
Yeah, I just want to say a few things related to this. I think really that, as mentioned, kickstarting the discussion was a key thing here to get this thing rolling. But also, as stated earlier before, that now we're really in the phase where we need to find, and we have found, and we are still finding more cases and segments in the business where we actually find the low-hanging fruits that will be the first movers there. So, like for instance, the national transportation network. So in Norway, for instance, there is a huge pressure to move transportation from the roads, because a road can only take so much, but you have plenty of space in the fjords and along the coastline. So they're like finding those cases. That's what we are doing now.
Yeah, you just said what I was going to say, that I think that even if we are not so hyped about the unmanned or autonomous vessels, we are still talking about increasing the automation on board the vessels, supporting the competent seafarers. But at the moment we are also discussing about these emission cuts and how the digitalization and automation can help us with it. But also we are talking about the business cases regarding the whole logistics chain, how that will change, how this enormous amount of information and data that we have regarding the transportation of goods and the vehicles transporting the goods. How can we combine all that and create new kind of business and new kind of services for the customers? I think that will be something that will, well, we all know the Amazon cases and whatever, but that's an interesting thing that we are monitoring.
Do you want to add something? No.
Just a short one.
Yeah, okay, sure.
I think that you've really hit the nail on the head. It's not really in the end about the autonomous vessel, it's about the whole logistic chain. And unless we don't improve the value in the whole logistic chain, the autonomous vessel won't really happen. It's about the whole thing.
Great. We have one more question here before we have to wrap up.
Thank you. Can I ask 3 questions, or one is the limit?
One.
Okay, I will try to be quick. I'm a student of autonomous engineering, and I'm a technical guy. So I want to target that the conservatism in the maritime industry. So if we take the technology example, if you want to develop apps for iOS, or they have the Google developer program, they have the iOS developer program, Apple developer program. Do you guys have any developer programs? Or I was looking for a software in our automation course to create a simulation. I couldn't find, but Kongsberg have, but I think it's paid, so of course I can't afford a chip, so I have to use some software. But then Google has the computing engine. We are doing the neural network for the using TensorFlow. They provide the computing engine, so you guys have some sort of development going on. And I mean the collaboration, maybe you guys should have a collaboration, because Google, Amazon, they have collaboration. And in terms of the business case, why we landed on the Saturn, I don't find any business case. But I think coming back to moon is very hard. But if we have not landed on the moon, we didn't have the cameras, we didn't even have the smartphones, 5G, anything. So there's a lot of industries which are connected. So maybe the technology example, maybe my friend over there, he will learn artificial intelligence and next quantum computing. He can help you guys to have the seismic sensors in your vessels. So there's a lot of things connected. So maybe you guys have a training program or a development program. So I can sign up and I can start creating apps for your ship or your vessel. And then maybe some sort of where you can have the development training going on, we can sign up for. And if you guys have some sort of, how you say, the training school together, so that could really help us as the engineers, and we can start using the computing powers or the resources to develop for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting. Who would like to give a brief then?
I think that you touch upon a topic now that is a bit broader than just autonomous vessels. I think what we now discuss is really, let's say, sustainability of the whole shipping industry. And if we are going to achieve that, we need to actually start to collaborate. So I think that you have a point there. When we go down, drill down then into specific, let's say, technical topics, it's a bit, of course, kinky to collaborate, so you need always to be a bit careful how you collaborate with competitors. But on the whole shipping ecosystem, there we need absolutely to collaborate. We need to ensure that the whole logistic chain starts to become more sustainable. That is clear.
Yeah, just from Kongsberg's side of things. So in Kongsberg we have a division called KDI, Kongsberg Digital, and they have a platform called Cognify, and I would advise you to contact with them and see what they can provide. I do not have the details, but I would advise you to talk to them.
Very good. I thank you all for extremely good questions. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I hope that there have been a lot of answers, or questions answered already, those even not asked, and also some comforting words that you will have your job. But some of you who study here, you might not know it yet, but some of you will never go at sea. You will start to work shoreside immediately. I saw that during my time in school, educating. And we see it every day, so you will have a job. And we talk about quite a few years ahead of time. I want to thank the panelists. Thank you very much for your extremely good discussions. I thank you all the audience for being here. It has been a really nice hour and a half, so thank you very much for coming.